what did this movie mean to you, being such a huge Christopher Nolan fan?
It meant that the entire year of 2020 was not a complete loss. That's what it meant to me.
This redeemed the whole year for you.
This was the only good thing that happened.
2020 was a future that went bad because someone went back in the past and made the wrong decision.
Exactly. Yeah.
The protagonist effed up.
Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, a show that celebrates all things nerdy. You'll get an insider's look into the world of comic books, graphic novels, TV and film, gaming and pop culture, as well as the technologies that drive all of it. Now, are you ready to get nerdy? Welcome to the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, the show about all things nerdy. We discuss nerd news, movies, TV shows, games, comics, and so much more. I'm Brian.
I'm Jeremy.
And I am Chad.
And brace yourselves, everyone, because we're about to get nerdy. All right, folks, it is review time once again for your pleasure. This episode, we are reviewing Christopher Nolan's Tenet, which, what a brain buster. So let's get going. All right, guys, your initial thoughts. Jeremy.
Second best Christopher Nolan movie.
Wow. What would you say is the best?
It's either Dark Knight or Inception.
Okay. Okay.
I think,
so a tie.
Yeah, like I feel like it's safely in the middle, and like either of those are like 1 and 3, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
Because from different aspects, like if you think about character, then obviously The Dark Knight is the number one.
Yeah.
Because of Heath Ledger. That's easy. But as a movie that makes you takes you away into another world, I think Inception does that better than The Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Or at least Gotham City is so familiar that you don't really feel like you're going anywhere, right?
Yeah, Nolan did such a good job of making Gotham City feel real.
Yeah.
That it doesn't feel like it's another world, like it is like a Tim Burton's Batman, right? That is clearly a fantasy, city. And Nolan, intentionally did the opposite.
Yeah.
So, cool. Chad, initial thoughts.
Well, I just watched this last night, and so I'm fresh off the movie. It's definitely a movie I want to watch again now that I've been able to think about it a little bit. And I think for me, and we'll get more into this later, but the ending really brought everything together and really made it like an amazing movie.
Yeah.
There was a point at which in the movie I thought, this might not be that great. And I remember seeing reviews where it was like split. Like some people hated the movie and some people loved it. And there was a point at which I was like, this might not be what I was hoping it would be. But thankfully for me, it turned out to be an amazing movie. So
cool.
Big fan.
Yeah. I got to say, I went into this movie expecting it to be Christopher Nolan's worst, because that's what I've heard by people that I trust. By people that love. My friend. My friend actually, you're so angry. My friend actually, Christopher Nolan is his absolute favorite director. He loves Nolan. He did not like this movie. And so because of that, when I went into this movie, I was like, okay, I mean, I'm going to go into it as much as I can, on my own, but I've got all these voices that that I agree with on other things. I disagree with him completely. I actually texted him after I watched it and I was like, what? Like I was like, have you seen this movie? He's like, yeah, I didn't like it. I was like, why? Like, it's so good. And I am the type of guy that I love movies that you have to think through the whole thing. And this is definitely that movie. This is like if Memento and Inception had a baby.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
That's a good
one. And I absolutely loved it from beginning to end. I even loved it when I was like completely unsure what I was watching.
Yep.
I was like, I'm so confused, but I love it. Like,
I don't know where I am.
Right.
I'm happy.
Like I've forgotten who I am anymore, but this is a great movie. So, okay, let's dive in, guys. Jeremy, what did this movie mean to you being such a huge Christopher Nolan fan?
It meant that the entire year of 2020 was not a complete loss. That's what it meant to me.
This redeemed the whole year for you.
This was the only good thing that happened.
2020 was a future that went bad because someone went back in the past and made the wrong decision.
Exactly. Yeah.
The protagonist effed up.
He saw himself or something happened.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh man. Chad.
Yes.
What did this movie mean to you?
Well, I'm still trying to process.
Still chewing on it?
Yeah, I'm still trying to process it, but I'm with you. I like the movies that make you think. But the thing I definitely appreciate about this movie, it's not the kind of movie that you walk away like, I've got to think about that because I still don't know what happened. It gave you just enough answers to make you want to think, oh, I see where that. Yeah, I see that, and I see that. It just, you start seeing more and more and more, which is that to me is a mark of a really good movie. It's like you want to go back and dive in again. It's not one of those that you're so lost that you're just like, I've got to go back to see it because I don't understand what I watched.
Yeah.
That's a horrible movie. And that's a waste of my brain power. Whereas this is more like, I want to really wrap my mind around what happened.
Yeah. I got to tell you, the second viewing was better.
Yeah.
Because I went back and I watched it, and then I watched a Tenet explained video.
Yeah.
And there's so many things in the movie from the very beginning, like in the opera house.
Yeah.
Like spoiler alert, duh, if you're watching this, you don't care about spoilers. Like Robert Pattinson's character is the one who saves him in the opera house. And he already
backpack.
Right, the backpack. Yeah. Like I didn't even remember the backpack until because it was such a pivotal part at the end. Yeah. Like I didn't even remember it. So the second time I watched it, I was like, oh, that's him. They never even explained it. Like in the movie, they never did like a montage of all the things that he remembered throughout the movie. Nothing. He just like it's there. And I love that. I love that it's a movie you have to chew on and you have to revisit. Like you said, not because you don't understand what it's about, but because there's so much there.
Yeah.
That you just kind of almost have to research it a little bit. And it gives you all the answers. You're not always, it's not easy to find all of them. You got to kind of rewatch it and see where they are. I love that. I love it so much.
That's
so good.
Do you remember the YouTuber that did the video that you watched?
I can look it up really quick.
It's probably Heavy Spoilers. I think that's the name of the channel.
Let's see.
That guy has watched it at least 50 times, and he's made multiple videos about it. Sorry, I didn't mean to sidetrack, but he's done like the best Tenet videos. I feel like.
I can't find it now.
Oh, it's fine.
I don't know, but it's but it was really helpful because he caught things that I didn't catch. So
just in your mention of the backpack, I do remember that part because I remember it paused briefly at the very beginning of the movie to highlight that little string that was hanging out, the little red string that was hanging out of the backpack. But I didn't realize that till sitting here right now. I thought for some reason, as the movie was going on, it was going to be, and I forget the main character's name.
The protagonist.
Yeah, the protagonist. I thought it was actually going to.
His name is.
Yes, I thought it was actually going to be the protagonist saving himself.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
But the fact that it was Robert Patterson's character was awesome. And then also when he was trapped down in the underground and trying to get to the bomb or whatever, he saw that backpack again. And they didn't make mention of the fact that that was Robert Patterson's character in there. You have to go back and think about that.
Right.
Oh, that's Robert Patterson. But they never mention it because he's actually driving up top, like trying to rescue him.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things like,
well, if you remember at the very end when Pattinson's walking away,
he has
he has the bag on, and so like he knows he's going to die.
Yeah.
And he's cool with it, And the moment, and this to me, oh gosh, I am so excited for this man to be the Batman now. Like I was totally cool with it before. Like we mentioned last episode, like I am totally cool with that man being Batman. I think he's going to do a great job. But after seeing this movie, because his character is so suave, and he's so, not to saying that that's going to be this version of Bruce, but like he can do that.
Yeah,
and he's a phenomenal actor. And so like, but that moment at the end, I choked up because like in that moment you saw to Pattinson's character, that was his best friend.
Yeah.
And he didn't and his best friend didn't even really know him at that point, but would. Yeah. And I loved that. Like that was just so like he was going to go sacrifice himself for his best friend who really didn't even know him yet.
Yeah.
And that mess, like, I think that's what got me. So later on, like when we talk about our favorite moments, that is my favorite moment for sure. Because it was, I mean, like, because in that moment, not only do you have a friend sacrificing himself for someone else that is his friend, but you have like, he's doing it almost joyfully.
Yeah.
Like, it's my honor to go and do this for you. And I just, the dialogue there, how time travel worked between the two of them, like, gosh, it was so good. I absolutely loved that dynamic of the movie. So Jeremy, you have, I believe, written a short dissertation about this movie. So before we jump into the score, tell us a little bit about your overall thoughts of the movie.
Like I said, it's in the top of all of Christopher Nolan's for me. It's in the top of all movies in the past 5 to 10 years.
Oh wow.
It just does everything perfectly.
So when you say that, what do you mean specifically? Like, why is it that for you?
So I think I like the way that Christopher Nolan approaches movies, and I think that has a lot to do with it. And I think the way that they kept it grounded, but also completely fluid at the same. It's like solid and fluid at the same time. Mm-hmm. And I think all of the actors were exactly the actors that needed to be in those roles. I don't remember the guy's name, but the guy who played the bad guy was an absolutely perfect bad guy, or the perfect bad guy for that role.
Gilderoy Lockhart from Harry Potter.
He is.
Yeah.
Wow.
That man is a phenomenal actor.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a phenomenal actor. He can literally do anything.
John David Washington. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I mean, did you not have to remind yourself that that's not Denzel Washington?
Yes. Yeah.
Throughout the whole movie. All of his mannerisms, the way that he spoke, the way that he
everything,
the meter of his speech, he paused at the same times, and it's like, this is Denzel Washington. Yeah.
He's got an amazing career ahead of him. I don't know if you guys watch Black Klansman.
Yes, it's so good.
Oh, Chad, you got to watch it, man. It's fantastic. I mean, it's funny. It's like a thriller. It is, and it's got a really good satisfying ending too. Like it's good.
I mean, it's based on a real story.
Yeah.
This guy, a black police officer, infiltrates the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah.
In the 60s or 70s.
70s, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And his partner, who is Adam Driver, is the face, but behind the scenes and even all the telephone conversations, it's John David Washington's character. It's really great.
Yeah, it's really cool. You should watch it. I think you'd really like it.
So yes, it's the perfect movie. Tenet, not Black Klansman.
Right.
It's a perfect movie. Things like them consulting a Nobel laureate physicist from Caltech to make sure that the science was grounded enough, like what we were talking about. You can't stretch everything. It has to have a grounding of some sort. And essentially what they based it on was this idea that all of these laws of physics there's a yin and yang with everything, and there's always this balance of the strong and weak magnetic forces and things like that, except for entropy. So the second law of thermodynamics, things tend to get worse, is essentially that's what the law of entropy is. That's the only thing that things don't go back. They don't get better. No matter what worldview you have, things are slowly on the same decline. And so the fact that they were able to play with that, it was a genius idea from the start. What if this one thing that isn't fluid, we were able to make fluid and take advantage of? I thought that was a great idea. Christopher Nolan is a big get everything in camera guy. And what I mean by that is, again, we were talking about this last episode, practical over computer graphics. And I make things on the computer. That's my job. But I know that Greg Nicotero is going to be able to make things look better, and it's going to translate better because it's practical.
Yeah.
And so they built massive sets where they could have just put everybody on a green screen. I think the practical over CG, it kind of contributes to the ageless quality of Christopher Nolan's movies.
Yeah.
Because of things like they didn't put people on a green screen in Inception when the hallway was tilting. They just
tilted the hallway.
They made a hallway that tilted, and I think that it's this intangible, you can't really put your finger on it, but it just translates better. We look at it and we see this makes more sense. I think that he picks the right people. We talked about the actors. The cinematographer that they got for this one, it's such a funny name. It's Hoyt de Hoytema. It's his last name is Hoyte, like his first name.
Yeah.
But then just an M and an A afterwards. So
okay.
I may be messing up the pronunciation.
Probably so, but we'll give you some grace.
Yeah. So he was the cinematographer on Tenet, Interstellar, Dunkirk, Ad Astra, Spectre. So if you think about all of those movies, they all have a very consistent look, and that's because of him.
Yeah.
They used multiple tricks in order to sell the illusion of time being fluid and that entropy being fluid. Like I said, a lot of it was done in camera. They had IMAX make a new type of camera.
Really?
They said, we need to do this thing and nothing does it. Can you please do it?
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, cool.
Well, I mean, Nolan was kind of like wasn't he one of the first directors to really push IMAX with The Dark Knight?
Yeah. And so what they had to do, the thing that IMAX had to build was they had to build a camera that shot in reverse.
Yeah.
And that may not make sense, or you may think, well, why don't you just like put it in and you hit reverse? But not with film. If you take film and you try to reverse it, because all of the frames are connected to each other, you would flip it over. But if you flip it over, then the image is flipped as well.
Yeah.
And because they wanted the perfect, like everything was the same going forwards and backwards, they had to make an IMAX camera that fed the film in reverse.
Weird.
So that when they played it right way, the right way, it was the exact same type of movement and things like that. And so let's see. I'm trying to look through my notes. Okay. So they also in camera was one of the tricks. Physical was another one of the tricks. They had cars and people driving backwards, like cars driving backwards, people performing backwards. The choreographers and the stunt coordinators had to teach everything in the action shots forward and backwards.
Yeah. Like the fight scene in the hallway.
Yeah. They had all the actors had to learn every action shot forwards and backwards. Vocally, the actors had to learn some of the lines backwards. So because like this could be a potential shot. I am speaking backwards and the camera is recording backwards, but my movement is forward so that when we play it back, you're moving backwards but talking forwards.
Yeah.
Because that was what matches up with the other shot that we did the other day where we had to do these exact things in the exact opposite order.
I'm going to go take a nap because that was really heavy. And then
yeah, it's absolutely insane. The other thing, the IMAX film camera is 80 pounds.
Oh, those things are not
80
light.
80 pounds.
Yeah.
And the cinematographer, he is like on his shoulder doing these shots most of the time. Like it's absolutely insane where using like a dolly or a tripod wouldn't work. He was like, okay, I'll just put this on my shoulder and got some incredible shots. In one of the interviews with John David Washington, he said they were doing one of the fight scenes and Hoyt was so close that John David Washington actually kicked him. And he thought, oh, shoot, I just kicked the cinematographer. And the guy's like, no, keep going. Like, he's an absolute beast. Everything that he's done is great. Yeah. So that's the next thing that I have is like a conspiracy theory or like a theory about like looking at the show in a different way. So
okay.
Do we want to do that later?
Yeah, let's do that.
You guys can say some words.
Yeah. Jeremy's like, someone else talk, please. Anybody? I don't care. Well, let's move into the score of the movie. Chad, what did you think of it?
Let me look at my page 3 footnote here. I think no, just kidding. No, I think this is an example where the score did stand out because I liked it so much. Like there were scenes in which there were like there was a scene where he was on the fire truck towards the end when they were all crowded around the main that truck that they were trying to get the whatever. Either way,
Yeah.
words are hard. And I remember hearing the music and thinking how well it suited that scene. And I actually thought it was Hans Zimmer. And it wasn't until later that I looked it up and realized it wasn't. It was someone else, because it had that same kind of hard electronic sound that he often does. And so I love the music to it. And I went through the soundtrack and listened to different spots, and I was like, yeah, this is really good on its own, not just with the movie. So
the guy's like 28 years old.
Oh, really?
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It baffled me that wasn't Hans Zimmer, by the way.
Yeah.
Like I didn't like going through the movie. I was like, this is Hans Zimmer, because Nolan and Hans Zimmer do everything together. And there was even one part where I was like, oh, he just kind of used the same thing that he did with the Joker's theme and The Dark Knight. And then at the end of the movie, the credits roll, and I'm like, wait, that wasn't Hans Zimmer.
Yeah.
How? Like, how was that not Hans Zimmer? So it was. I loved it. It was, the score was, it fits Nolan's vibe.
Yeah.
It was a Nolan movie score, which, up to this point, I would say, which is very Hans Zimmer, but it's not just him anymore.
Yeah.
So I think it was subtle when it needed to be subtle, but for the most part, it was a character in the movie.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to describe it.
It's the watch. He's done this in probably all of his movies, but he's recorded his watch. He likes the sound that his watch makes and has had it recorded and uses it in almost all of his movies as a means of tension. When you think like,
yeah.
It was in Dunkirk, it was in Dark Knight, it was in Inception. I'm sure it was in all the other ones, but those are the three that I can remember, other than this one also. Yeah. But it's perfect for this movie because we're talking about time, right? Yeah. The whole movie is about making time more fluid. And so again, another way to ground it is to keep that ticking going and building that suspense that way.
Yeah. For sure. All right. Well, Jeremy, why don't we jump back into your dissertation here? And did the movie set out to tell the story it wanted to?
I mean, this is such a hard question, but I think, or it was hard with Wonder Woman because we don't know what really the story was.
Right. Exactly.
But I think Christopher Nolan is, he's always going to tell the story that he wants to, and he's always going to get it accomplished. Mm-hmm. So I'm just assuming that it did tell the story that it wanted to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think he would just scrap the whole project if it wasn't the story that he wanted.
What I mean by this question is, at the beginning of the movie, it sets out to tell a certain story, and and you can kind of figure out what that is in the first 10 minutes, right? Like with this particular movie, obviously it's kind of a second coming of age story.
Yeah.
Like it's not like a boyhood to manhood, but like a man who is literally reinventing who he is.
Yeah.
It's that story. And the protagonist, it's his story. It's the story of a genius who comes in and out of time.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the question: is did it, in your opinion, did it do that well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it sold that story very well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Christopher Nolan sometimes makes us think that he's telling one story when he's actually telling another story.
Yeah.
Like the top with in Inception, right? We don't know. You're left thinking like, was it that, or Was it not that? You know, like how did the story end? So I think there's a little bit of that in this, but yeah, I think the superficial story was sold perfectly.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Chad.
Yeah, and I'll talk about more of this when we get to our favorite part. But the one theme that I kept seeing over and over again was the grandfather paradox. They mentioned that several times, and that's exactly what the movie was, because they went back in time, took the main bad guy out, and then it was resolved. But when you think about the grandfather paradox, the movie, the story wouldn't have happened because he was taken out of the movie, you know. And it was one of those that I walked away, kept going back around and around on. It was like, oh yeah, that's exactly what they just did, was the grandfather paradox that you can't do, but they did it and they pulled it off, and it was awesome. So yeah, I think it did what it was intended to do, for sure.
Cool. All right, Jeremy, what's some of your favorite moments? When it began, the whole movie, and then when it ended.
I always like the. So if you cut the movie into quarters, that third quarter is always the best with Christopher Nolan. In the same way that it is for Quentin Tarantino in like Pulp Fiction or some of the other more sporadic, like telling multiple stories, or like Reservoir Dogs, right?
Yeah.
That third quarter is where the pieces start coming together, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so awesome. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Right? When they're like 8 layers deep in Inception, and all these things are happening, and all these pieces are fitting together on all the layers, and you see how the storyline is just like perfectly lining up. You know, that's the magic of Christopher Nolan, and it's the same in just about every movie that he's done. You think about Interstellar, when Matthew McConaughey. Can somebody say it for me?
Matthew McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey.
McConaughey.
Matthew McConaughey. Ohana means
McConaughey.
Family. Family means nobody gets left behind.
That's right. Yes, that guy. All right.
One could have that thought.
Nice callback there, buddy.
Yeah. When he's like trapped in the in-between world, I don't really know what you would call it.
When he's trapped in the bookcase.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That is, I think that's one of those things, because like then you're doing the flashbacks, you're realizing that the thing that she was hearing in the beginning of the movie is him trying to communicate to her through the bookcase.
Yeah.
He's just, the third quarter is always good.
So in the third quarter of this, so you've kind of analyzed Inception and then Interstellar. What would be that for this movie?
I think when they're once Ives comes into the picture and they do the mission, because as they're doing the mission, you're realizing how overlapped everything was, and you're like, they're peeling back layers to show you that, like, time's going this way and going this way, but they're like linked somehow. And that's the way the grandfather paradox doesn't like blow up the whole world, right?
Yeah.
Because those two things that we thought were separate are actually linked together. And so your future self and your present self are actually two different people, and it's fine if one of them gets killed because the storyline's going to continue anyway.
Yeah, it's essentially what Marvel did with Endgame.
Yeah.
It's the same type of it's the crushing the Terminator and the Back to the Future theory of time travel.
Yeah.
Because it now when you introduce time travel, now it's just parallel universes and not one single timeline.
Right. Yeah.
That can be altered. Yeah. So awesome. All right. Well, are there any least favorite moments, Chad?
No.
I feel like no matter what you say, if you say anything, Jeremy's going to be like, "You're dead to me. Don't ever talk to me again."
My least favorite moment was when the movie ended. How about that?
No, don't be afraid. I want to hear the criticism.
Well, I would say you didn't ask me my favorite movie.
I'm sorry. Your favorite moment. Go ahead.
That's okay. I'll pair it with my least favorite.
All
My
right.
favorite moment was when the wife dove off the boat.
Yeah.
Because it was at that moment that it all came together for me. And I thought back like that was the grandfather paradox, because she saw herself and thought it was the woman that was cheating on it. The husband was cheating on, but it was actually herself killing her husband and going away with her, which was what started the whole thing in the beginning, because she was wanting to, in the past, she still had a husband for all that time. And now at that moment, she didn't have a husband. Anyways, it was one of those like twisted your mind to be like, oh, she saw herself.
Well, and in that moment, she even says like she envied that woman because she looked so free, and that is what happened. She was free at that point.
That's the way that they like nonchalantly were like, she said, yeah, and he just like disappeared.
Yeah,
either just like went off somewhere, at the beginning of the movie. Come to find out,
I didn't think about that. That is a great point.
Yeah, he didn't disappear; he did.
Yeah. So that was my favorite. My least favorite part, and it's only because of ignorance on my side, is I'm still confused as to when they go back in time, how some characters are going in reverse and some are going forward. Like, for example, they went back in time. It was both Denzel Washington and Batman. I can't think of their actual real name.
It's John David Washington is the protagonist.
The protagonist.
And Robert Pattinson is
Robert Pattinson. They both went back in time with her when she was injured. But Robert Pattinson was going forward and the other guy was going backwards. And then they were still in the past. And then somehow it switched to where the wife and the bad guy were going forward, but they were still in the past and they should have been going backwards. So I don't understand why the army, as they were approaching, were going forward while everything was going backwards. But then there was a moment in which he had contact with the bad guy and they were going forward, but they were still both in the past. Like that was my least favorite part, because I felt like it was being inconsistent. Like why is he not going backwards too? Because they're in the past. So either way.
Well, I know someone who has written a dissertation about this, and he just so happens to be with us. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on that?
Wow.
So I think you have, so in interviews, they've said that at any given moment, they accounted for at least 4 of every character. Meaning like they probably, I don't know if I even mentioned this before, but they used 1.5 million feet of film. That's, jeez. Yeah, it's the most film that's ever been used on any movie at any point ever in the history of the world.
Wow.
And it was because they told the script writers had this whole thing to where 4 of every character's storyline was written out. And what I think you're talking about in terms of like being confused when when things are going backwards and forwards. I think what they're doing is, so you've got, let's say you have forward and backwards, but you don't really have forward and backwards because you have Robert Pattinson forward, Robert Pattinson backwards, John David Washington forward, John David Washington backwards, the girl forward, the girl backwards. All of these characters have all of their forwards and backwards, and then they also have the perception of people, you know, so Ives has this, is able to see Robert Pattinson forward and backwards. So that's almost like a different camera angle. And then you have the narrator, what they're, you know, because if you have 4 simultaneous characters going on and you don't see all of those at the same time, you may see 2, but you're not going to see all of those at the same time. So the camera, the narrator, is what you're saying is confusing you, because the camera is going to dive in and it's going to grab this part, but then the camera is going to go like this and flip around and go like in the opposite direction, just because that was that one part of the story that they wanted to tell you at that time in that order.
Mm.
And it didn't matter whether it was John David Washington's forward or backwards or Robert Pattinson's forward or backwards. That was the shot that they decided to tell you at that time.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Jeremy,
No,
you just gave me indigestion. I don't appreciate that.
I think I need to go back, obviously, and watch it again, think about it more, and do some research on it, because I appreciate your explanation, and I'm most certain that you are correct. The thing that I'm too simple-minded about it, because I just remember them saying, when you go into this chamber and you go to the other side, you have to wear oxygen. Everything's going backwards, and everything will be opposite. It's fire, but it feels like cold to you. Mm-hmm. You can't breathe because you're at, all that stuff. And then Robert Pattinson and Denzel Washington get in the chamber at the same time, go back in time, but Denzel Washington is going backward and Robert Pattinson is going forward. And there's even a scene in which Denzel Washington's character, or whoever his name is,
John David Washington.
Yeah, he's literally going backwards, and he says to Robert Pattinson, "Hey, blah blah blah," tells him what to do while he's going backwards, and the other dude's going forward. But they were still in the past. Like that part didn't make sense to me. Like how all of a sudden he's able to go backwards, but the other one's not. So, anyways, I don't want to kill the point because we have more to talk about. But that was my least favorite. It's just I couldn't wrap my mind around that part of it, because I even like wrote it, like drew it out in my mind. I was like, okay, so you have the past, the future is going this way, or the present is going this way, the past is going this way, but it's actually flipped around because you're going forward through the past. Anyways, it was really complex for me. So,
folks, the most confusing episode of the Dastardly Dingoes podcast you'll ever see, and I love it. This is great.
But I do too. Like, just the fact that you were confused by it is something that, like, so that means that Christopher Nolan didn't explain it well enough for everybody to understand. So that's a criticism, right?
Yeah.
So they made something that is too complex. We were talking about that with comics and world building, right? There's that threshold where, okay, we've built so much world that everybody is completely bogged down. You think about Lord of the Rings, like it's different races and different languages, and you're having to set up, and the freaking guy named every single rock and tree and path in the entire world that he created, and that's hard.
It's very much, this is the equivalent of reading a book with all of those characters, and you have to like have an index and a dictionary of every reference that's made so that you can follow the story. It is, yeah, you're right, Jeremy. It's a complex. He built a complex story that where upon one viewing you cannot get everything and you are going to be confused. And that's honestly, there were a lot more things that came. Because I get what you're saying, Chad. I'm just not smart enough to explain it to you. So I would just encourage you to watch it again. And I think are you talking specifically about the part where they like walk into the chamber and then come out the other one?
Yeah, and then they go to the airport, and one's going reverse, and one's going forward. But they were supposed to, the way the world was set up, you go to that chamber, everything's going backwards.
Yeah, I think to them they were going forward, but to everyone else they were going backwards. I think I'll have to watch it again too, because like I said, I'm not 100% sure how to explain it. But anyway, yeah, watch it again, and then we'll talk about it. Because,
for sure.
I've watched it. I've watched it 5 times and watched about 4 hours worth of like YouTube videos explaining it.
Yeah.
So.
Jeremy's like, I am the Unimind. I know all things.
The protagonist.
Yes, I am the protagonist.
I could be. That would be a great job, I think.
I would not want. That's too stressful. Oh man. All right, guys. The time has come. I think we all know what it's going to be. Let's rate it. Jeremy, no surprise. What is your rating?
You have to explain the rating system, remember?
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. The rating system for the Dastardly Dingoes podcast, we have premiere night, which is the best it could ever be. You're going to go to a premiere night at midnight. Remember when we still had those? Matinee, dollar theater, movie rental, avoid it, or kill it with fire. You hate it with a fiery passion and you want it to die.
Yeah.
So Jeremy clearly hates this movie.
Yeah. Well, it's a premiere night for me, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Chad.
Me too. Premiere night.
Yep. Premiere nights all
Are
around.
you just afraid to say something else because I'm going to yell at you?
No, not at all.
Chad's like, I want to go to bed. Jeremy, don't explain any more stuff to me. It's a premiere night. Fine, I give up. No, I think this is one of the best movies that's come out in the last 10 years. I think it's fantastic. So premiere night for me as well. So, all right, guys, any closing remarks?
No, I'm good.
No? Chad, you good?
Looking at my... No, I'm not seeing anything. I'm good.
All right, guys, go see Tenet. It is, well, don't go see it because it's on streaming. Look it up. Rent it online. It is a fantastic film, but put your thinking cap on because it's intense.
Hit me up in my DMs if you have any questions.
if you have any trouble at all, we have Dr. Nolan here with us who can explain it to you. So as always, thank you so much for tuning into the Dastardly Dingoes podcast. Remember to hit like, subscribe, and share with your friends, and hit that bell so you can be notified when an episode pops up. And as always, have fun, be safe, and don't wait for the week to be yours. Make it so. Have a good one, everybody. See you next time.